Hi everyone. I too would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the Anyone land and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. My case presentation between hope and grief is of a woman from the AZD community experiencing ambiguous loss. She had provided consent for me to share her case, and for confidentiality reasons, I changed biographical details of client. We both agreed to use the name Heavy instead of her real name. Heavy in our language in Kurmanji means hope, and we use this name because hope has always remained a big part of Heavy's story. I also wanted to point out that Heavy and I are both from the AZD community, so we share the same cultural, linguistic, and religion background. In this presentation, I will focus on ambiguous loss, both clinically and in a broader community context. I'll briefly cover the AZD background, the commonness of ambiguous loss in the community, Heavy's trauma history, my assessment, interventions, outcomes, and reflections. I decided to use this specific flower on this slide, the coronaria, and we call it Gulani Sani. And this flower in Yazidi culture represents hope and symbolizes new beginnings. And it's the symbol for the Yazidi New Year, which was last month. And internationally, it symbolizes sacrifice. So it has a very deep connection to client story. I wanted to use this photo on this slide as it represents the Yazidi identity and spirituality, just to ground us before discussing persecution and trauma. For the sake of time, I will keep this information brief, and I will keep the rest for your own time and curiosity. But I will provide enough information so we can hold a broader context from where Heavy comes from. The Yazidi community is an ancient ethno-religious group from northern Iraq mainly. Yazidis have lived for a millennia in tribal community all across Mesopotamia, with a long history of targeted persecution. The most recent one was the genocide committed by ISIS in 2014 in August, where entire villages were massacred, communities were displaced, families separated, and many people remain missing to this day. What is important clinically that this history did not only disrupt individual lives, but it fractured social network, cultural continuity, and collective safety. The orange marker on the map is Heavy's hometown, Sinjar. We call it Shingal in Kurmanji. And yep, I was just reading the messages. And yeah, so it's located near the Syrian border, and internally it is within the Kurdish Iraqi territory. So this area has been long marked by conflict. As a result of the 2014 genocide, yes, more than 6,000 Yazidis were abducted, and yeah, close to 3,000 are remain missing to this day. So this impact is felt by the whole community. Before 2014, there were around 400,000 Yazidis living in Sinjar, and it is estimated that three families out of every five family are living with this kind of uncertainty. On this slide, I wanted to pause and challenge everyone here to reflect on how we can support a community living with this level of loss and ambiguity. Another result of 2014 genocide led to many Yazidi families and and individuals to migrate to other countries, places like USA, Europe as a continent, Canada, Australia, which led also to further separation from family and land. In Australia, resettlement began in 2015, and now about 8,000 Yazidis live mainly in New South Wales and Queensland in the regional areas. Even with a strong community connection, the trauma does not just disappear after resettlement. People are rebuilding their lives while carrying loss, survivor guilt, and worry for family left behind. Recent violent events in Australia and international developments can also challenge the sense of safety uh, for the community, and which reactivates fear, distress, and for these affected communities, including the Yazidi community. The community can feel like a source of strength, but also a trigger at times. So more about the client. Hevi is a 45-year-old woman. She arrived in Australia in 2025. She's a mother of five. Hevi was kidnapped by ISIS during 2014 genocide with the rest of her family. During captivity, two of her children went missing, and they are still missing to this day, with no confirmation of life, death, or their whereabouts. Hevi began counseling in like 6 weeks after her arrival, and she had to pause due to significant physical health issues before re-engaging earlier this year. She currently lives with her husband and three children, whom she was heavily relying on for everyday activities. Heavy is also suffering from a lot of physical health conditions, and she is taking so many medications, almost 25 types of medications a day, and these are a lot of chemicals affecting her presentation. This genogram help makes it visible for us how fragmented her family system is. You can see physical separation across countries, unknown locations, and losses that are unresolved. Heavy experienced prolonged and repeated trauma, including and imprisonment during a kidnap, experienced torture and witnessed torture to others, including her own children. She escaped captivity under extreme dangerous circumstances, which led to separation from her family as well. And then she lived in a refugee camp for nearly 10 years before resettling in Australia. Living in a regional setting has been both challenging and protective for Heavy. There are real barriers when it comes to trauma-informed services, transport means, and reduced anonymity in a small town, which can increase stigma. At the same time, the Yazidi community connections has fostered belonging, meaning, and support for Heavy. So Armidal becomes both a recovery environment and also a space where systematic limitations are very visible. The complex interaction of challenges and stressors is a primary model used at starts. This diagram conceptualizes the complexity of stressors and challenges that a client from a refugee background faces, which can overwhelm their ability to cope. It also recognizes that client's presentation does not exist in isolation. It is rather impacted by many different factors. So their own trauma experience, normal life challenges, their recovery environment and how that is shaped, international events, and many other factors, health, biological impacts as well. For Heavy, her presentation is shaped by ongoing international events. She continues searching for her children uh, overseas and contacting people who are relevant and contacting new survivors if they have seen them or know anything about them. So she's very active in the sense of reclaiming her children, and very active with the organizations like Red Cross and NGOs in Iraq that can lead to any information on her children. So when Heavy presented, her level of distress was quite high. She was often very anxious and alert. Her sleep was disrupted, and she was coming to the sessions already exhausted. There were moments where emotions could come very quickly, sometimes crying without any warning. A lot of it also showed up in her body through fatigue, pain, and just feeling worn down. And underneath all this was the not knowing about her children, which made it really difficult for her to cope day to day, and to be even around others, including her own family. In Heavy's case, we are working with type 1 ambiguous loss. Her children are physically absent but emotionally very present. And this appears in constant oscillation between hope and despair. Her body carries uncertainty through pain, fatigue, and heightened anxiety. There is also a deep survivor guilt and self-blame as she repeatedly revisits questions that have no answers. For Heavy, the loss did not just say about missing her loved ones, it also spread to other areas of her life. So, affecting how she feels about herself and about others, her trust, and uh, and the world around her, basically, her role in this world and in her family, even. Evie's goals were actually very practical and grounded. She wanted better sleep, managing anxiety, improving daily functioning. Even socially, she wasn't aiming so big. She said, I at least want to be able to tolerate sitting with my own family. And that statement stayed with me and affected me quite deeply. And I noticed that she wasn't trying or even looking to fix everything that happened. She only wanted to cope a little better. My goals were shaped directly by hers. To support sleep and anxiety, I focused on stabilization and regulation. To improve daily functioning, we worked with pacing, not pushing too fast. And for social reconnection, building safety and trust was essential. Then exposure to group and community settings could follow. So the work was not separate, it was a pathway towards her own goals. When I first met Heavy, she was referred to start to receive counseling along with the rest of her family. So I was doing a family assessment for the whole family, and the whole family was able to be supported at different points. But Heavy stood out for me, and her distress was immediately visible for me. Her body was tense, she was hyper vigilant, and tears came really easily. And these early observations reinforced how activated her nervous system was, even in a safe environment. The psychometric tools reflected what we were seeing clinically already. So high levels of anxiety and depression, elevated trauma symptoms and low well-being showed on the WHO5 well-being index. What was important, though, that her sense of self-efficacy remained relatively intact, and that then became an important strength to build on. In the sessions, the work was guided by how she would show up on the day. Some days we could go deeper, and other we stayed just with settling the body. A lot of the work was creating space for her to talk about her children, their names, who they were, and what they meant to her. At the same time, she was very clear that she wanted to learn how to cope. So then the work became gently building her capacity to do that, helping her stay with the distress without becoming so overwhelmed, and supporting her practically where needed. And I used this photo balancing stones because a lot of our work can feel really like what we see in this photo. So we're supporting the presentation while holding a lot of other area advocating and case management and coordinating with other services. I also made sure to look after her self-efficacy during the process and to use motivational interviewing in moments of hopelessness. Working with ambiguous loss, we did not avoid the loss. We moved towards it carefully. So the work became holding both staying connected to the children while building her capacity to live alongside the not knowing. We also worked on separating guilt from responsibility and grounding when distress became overwhelming. Through narrative therapy, we externalized guilt and trauma and normalized what if thinking, giving space for both grief and hope to exist at once. For the AZD community, trauma and healing are both collective experiences. Grief is spoken about openly and witnessed publicly, especially during annual genocide commemorations on August 3rd of each year. This collective dimension has been deeply protective for Heavy. Another thing that worked was traditional songs and stories of grief um, uh, and genocide. There is a whole genre of grief music in the Yazidi community, and traditionally, every couple of villages would have a woman who her job was to sing for mourning and sing for grief and be at funerals, and there was a whole genre of this type of art and music in the Yazidi community. So this storytelling and song uh, component helped her maintain a cultural identity and also express her emotions and also feel connected to a collective experience. Many times when she didn't know how to describe a feeling or an experience, she would refer to um, a character within these songs or stories to make sense of what she was feeling and to also express to to me and to people around her what she was feeling. Yeah, so I shared some quotes from Heavy and also translated them to English. Quotes that are reflecting on her progress and the sense of safety uh, in counseling. But over time, she managed to rebuild her trust in her own capacity and her sense of self. She began attending sessions independently without the need of her family being there, re-engaging socially in community gatherings and reconnecting with her community, and made meaningful friendships throughout this reconnection process. She developed a deeper awareness of the body-mind connection, which helped her and strengthened her ability to regulate. Post-treatment measures also show a slight increasing in the symptomology. Decreasing in the symptomology, and which reflects on the outcome. Yeah. I also wanted to take some time and just sit and reflect on the whole process, because this is where a lot of my learning happened. So early on, a lot of what I offered was not working, and that was quite confronting for me. I relied on cognitive strategies, psychoeducation, hoping to ease her distress, but without stabilization, that was not possible. And also early exposure to community setups and groups, increased overwhelm and relaxation during acute physical illness was not impactful. So I learned a lot in this case. What shifted the work was not a new modality or a new technique. It was rather slowing down and listening to her body, and listening carefully to her presentation. At the same time, sharing the same cultural background supported deep trust, but it also brought complexities. There were moments when I used intentional self-disclosure in a controlled environment, and that use of self-disclosure was especially impactful in the AZD context, where they have been a lot of mistrust, and they've been subjected to systematic terror. I also carry loss in my family, with missing family members. So her story felt really close to mine, and her experience sounded very familiar at times. This work really pushed me to sit with my own uncertainty and with my own limits, and helped me believe if when we are present, that can actually be enough, without trying to fix anything or fix basically anything. Being present can be enough. Thank you for listening and holding space for this story. In reflecting with my consultant, we noted how limited the number of AZD therapists globally is, which makes this extremely a rare context. And this has been a privilege to share this work on behalf of STARTS, and to honor Heavy's courage and the resilience of her community. I'm going to leave you with some QR codes and to more articles and documentaries about AZDs, and a couple of seconds from a song on ambiguous loss, which is close to my heart and to Heavy's heart. Thank you.
وداي بيرات بيشا عبد الله يوم مراد بيجي تقرارك القلب داوود كرة لافن جيم فيها سفر زوزانا ساغبيني هيكو فانا دلي مايلولو عبد الله يوم مرا وخالي لافن جا بيجي دايكي وت برسارا كرة لافن جي خجمتكي كرة لافن جي تبري كتا سفر زوزانا بجوقك شيخان وبيرارا بري وقاشت لاشان وراني أمو دوستو قودارو خير خواز الودر سلابي.
Thank you.